Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 13th of August 2013. Now, today's episode should actually be pretty damn good and information-packed, so it's definitely worth a listen. We'll be covering a recent interview with Ghostcrawler in which he talks about literally everything that people are interested in. It's so good. So, let's get going. Very first thing is the Siege of Orgrimmar. Now, he said that the Siege of Orgrimmar has a little bit more balancing than Throne of Thunder. Not balancing, a little bit more branching than Throne of Thunder and the previous mop instances. And even specifically said, allowing you to skip a boss or do bosses in a specific order. This is fantastic, and here's the thing, right? A linear instance means that pretty much every boss is one after another with a bit of trash in between. Now that gets really boring, actually, and I think Throne of Thunder does suffer from this a little bit, where, you know, G-Kun trash, Hordon trash, etc. It's just a bit of a pain in the arse, and say if there's a boss you don't need, but to progress you still need to go through them, well, it's nice to be able to just skip that boss, skip that trash, and optimize the way that you spend your time during your raid. So I actually think, yes, this is very, very, very fantastic, and it's just nice to see them doing that for once, because they have shied away from it from the last while. Now, they also said that the first 3 or 4 bosses shouldn't be too hard for most raiding guilds, allowing them to use those bosses to gear up while they progress. This is very good, actually. Very, very, very good. Now, in Throne of Thunder, you had Jinrock being dead simple, like everyone could kill him, and then Hordon and Cancel were quite a leap up from that, and then the rest of the bosses were not really, I mean, they were still tricky, but in terms of difficulty spikes, you had the first 2 difficulty spikes being really close near the start. At least this gets people in, you know, sort of, it gets them through the door quick, they can start gearing up on the first few bosses, and then they're moving into the harder stuff. I think that's a way better way to do your progression, and just a little bit more balanced in terms of how people use their time, and just the feel and pacing of the instance. It is nice that after a few weeks you can have a few bosses on farm, you're gearing everyone up, and you're feeling sort of more positive about your progression because you know you're getting somewhere, and that's fantastic. Now, they also said that the heirloom weapons that drop Garrosh are personal loot from Flex, Normal, and Heroic difficulty, and that the first heirloom weapon that drops is for your current loot spec, but then after that, it's one at random. So I think this is all fair enough. Now, there's lots of cool stuff. They also said that the heirloom weapons are intended to make Mists of Pandaria a little bit more alt-friendly. So this would lead me to assume that these weapons are pretty damn badass. I mean, they must be if they're, you know, supposed to make such a meaningful difference to alt leveling, and I think this is fantastic because a lot of people have been saying, you know, they don't enjoy the mop leveling experience. That's the one complaint I've heard the most about this expansion, and honestly I think the problem is that they streamlined it so heavily it took any player agency or anything interesting out of the leveling experience, and that's why people don't like it. But so really anything to just get through mop leveling as fast as possible is great, and I think these heirloom weapons are a really good way of doing that. Now, this does call into question. The tag is that they are for level 90 to 100. If they're meant just for mop leveling, what does that mean? And perhaps that tag is not correct as of now. But anyway, that's it for Siege of Orgrimmar. Next thing we have is the Proving Ground. So they said that it was originally targeted for the Mist's launch, but basically just kept on pushing it back because they wanted to finish it and make it good. So this is a feature that's been in the works for quite a while. And yeah, it's targeted at people learning new roles, of course. There's not really the sort of thing that you're going to go into to hone your skills. It's just, you know, you go there, you maybe get up to gold, and that's it. You've sort of learned the basics, and people will know, well, if you can do that, then you at least have a clue what you're doing, and that's a good thing. Now, so yes, there's that, and they said that as long as Proving Grounds works out well, they could use it for lower level training in the future. This would be great, because if they're training people up from a low level, it means that as they go through the leveling experience, they sort of know a little bit more about the game. And they'll level faster, and just more understanding probably means more enjoyment, so I think that'll be really good. Now, they also said that it could even be used to replace the item level cap for gaining into LFR or matchmaking. Now, I think this is absolutely bloody brilliant, because there's a lot of people going to LFR not having a clue about their class or role. You see this every week when you do LFR, you always have some dingus going around with 15k damage. I mean, hell, last week I had a mage, a fire, no, it wasn't a fire mage, it was, because fire mages are the ones that don't scale well at low gear. But anyway, this mage is doing 15k damage. Now, mages do very well at the minute, and there's no reason they should do 15k. So if Proving Grounds was a gate in, this guy wouldn't have got in, and what would have happened is, if he wanted in, he'd have to do better so he doesn't pull a group down. Now, this would actually increase the quality of LFR groups on average if they did it, and would lead to LFR being a more positive experience. I still think it's far from the best experience in the game, but if it really is all that somebody can do, at least for the people who only have 1 or 2 hours a week, if they can be more guaranteed to have a good group when they go into LFR and their time isn't wasted, then it's good for the game, and what's good for players is generally good for the game. And they also said that it won't be perfectly balanced for every class and spec, and shouldn't be used as a ranking tool. I think this is pretty obvious at the end of the day with the different mechanics of all the classes. Even take healers, the different sort of ways that the healers interact with them, with healing. It's going to be hard to balance, so yeah, that's fair enough. But as long as it has a semblance of being a little bit balanced, it should be fine. Now, the next thing they're talking about is flex. So most guilds will be able to make full progress in flex difficulty, so pretty much it's for everyone. It's the ICC 10 of this expansion, and that's what it should be, and I think that's good. Now, they also said that the flex tech could be used in scenarios, which is really cool, and it could actually scale from 3 to 5 players, so that'd be nice. And that the content, any other content that doesn't have very tight balancing is a good candidate for scaling. So, example was heroic raids are a bad candidate, and no shit, that would be crazy. So, yeah, that's good. Next, they said that scaling raids past 25 players has been considered, and they gave an example of, say, a 30-player raid. Now, that's interesting, and there's a lot of these really big social guilds that have maybe a few raid teams in them, but, there's like 400 of them or something. It'd be pretty cool for those guys. And it would be nice to have, just go in with a 40-person raid, still have it mean something in terms of difficulty. That'd be nice, so yeah, it's pretty cool. Now, for Connected Realms, they said that Connected Realms will be merged in groups large enough to make one good population level, and this could mean 2+ realms. They will be rolled out slowly to make sure everything works well, it's just starting with a small pool and ensuring that everything works. This is better than doing one big rollout and it being a fuck up, because if that happens, it gets on the front page of MMO Champion. Hell, it might get on the front page of Joystick or PC Gamer. World of Warcraft screws up server merges, that's essentially what would happen. So it's way, way, way better they just take it slow, and this is what's, at the end of the day, if you're not first and you're on a small pop realm, I know it sucks, but this is probably what's going to ensure that when it does come, that you get the best experience. And they were quite happy with the way that everyone can keep, like, guild names, player names, because of the little thing where they put a hash beside them. So I think that's great. All in all, Connect Realms, I think, is going to be one of the best features to come into this game, just from an overall game standpoint. It's brilliant. Now, for professions, they said that it's easy for your character's level to advance much faster than your profession skill level, and fixing this will take a lot of dev time, and they've considered looking at all the different recipes, and the way that it's really contrived sometimes. I mean, for enchanting, you're just sitting there enchanting bracers, re-enchanting bracers, doing the same enchant 20 times. It doesn't make any sense, even from an RPG perspective. So that's the thing. Now, next, they said that future expansions will make leveling professions a little bit nicer, similar to mining and herbalism. I think this is great. Just, there's no complaints that could be made. And that swapping professions is somewhat painful, and it's something that might be looked at in the future. I think fair enough. Perhaps if you were, I don't know, maybe if you kept your skill, but there was a fee, like a re-profession spec fee, that was substantial, because at the end of the day, you don't want somebody to just have every profession leveled up and then just switching them around too much. That would be ridiculous. Now, finally, there's just some little miscellaneous things. First of all, the developers have to strike a balance between making too many changes and making the necessary ones. That's obvious. If they make too many, people get pissed off. If they make too little, people get pissed off. Both for really just different sides of the same coin. And also, there's a lot of players who want changes that improve their class, and a lot that don't want any changes or don't want to relearn, blah blah blah, and that's just a bit of a challenge in balancing. And finally, we have a very good piece of news. Valor points will not be converted to justice for patch 5.4. Players who want to stockpile will be able to do that, and I quote, and should probably start thinking about that. So this probably means the patch is coming in 4 to 5 weeks. Now, this is great. And the Valor Point stacking thing means that when the patch drops, you have a little bit of a, a little nice thing to go and grab. It also means that, well, it's not nice taking things away from people. especially in a game when they've spent time to earn them. And no matter what you might say, it's nice that you can keep the Valor. I mean, this was a feature that went down very well when it happened last time, so I think this is definitely a pretty nice change, pretty fair. Now, another thing that happened was the coffee with the devs, and honestly, if I went over that, this would probably be a 40-minute long show. And I don't want to do that, because that's not what you guys have come to expect. This is already way over schedule. So what I'm going to do is, I'll probably split this down into maybe 2 videos or 3, and just talk about the different classes and give my thoughts. So, yeah, that's really it. Now, various things. The channel is something that I kind of want to have grown a good enough bit by the time I get back to university, so that I can, make enough to pay my rent and not have to take a job, because a job would pretty much take like half my channel time away from me. So please do like, subscribe, recommend to your friends, that kind of thing. I don't want to seem too much like a, whore, but whatever, kind of need to do that stuff now. But yeah, that's it. Please, yeah, enjoy, stay classy, and I'll see you next time.